What's up, everyone? Welcome to Unmasked, where things are discovered, uncovered, brought to the light, and made known. I'm your host, Lamar Barrett, coming live to you from PG County, Maryland. If you're interested in finding out about the untold stories behind being a college coach, this is the show for you. Being a former assistant men's college basketball coach for 16 years, there are so many untold stories behind the scenes in the life of a college basketball coach. Now, let's unmask them. Today's guest is a young and bright assistant coach with a tremendous work ethic, a great basketball mind, excellent talent evaluator, great teacher, a young man that I see growing in this business, and he's a native of Hampton, Virginia. He's from the same place I'm from. So I'm excited when I got a chance to interview guys from the same area as me. And his name is Jarren Dyson. And I'll give you a little bit of information about him before we get into it. And I'm calling him Jarren for this is the only time. So I know him as JD. So when you hear me say JD, that's what I'm calling him. I don't know him by anything else, So I want to say, JD was a standout player at Emory Henry for 4 years. He was a 4-year starter, 2-year captain, so he had an outstanding career there. And then when he finished playing, he got into coaching and had a chance to go back home to his alma mater at Tab High School. So he did play at Tab High School, and we'll probably mess around a little bit about that because I was joking with him off air and told him that was my last game, my senior night. My senior year, so I had a chance to play against Tab High School, who's Doug Baggett, who's the head coach there now. He was the coach there then. So that was 30-some years ago now. And so we'll probably get into that a little bit. And then he took a year off. After 2 years of being an assistant at Tab High School, had a chance to go and work and, go and work somewhere else. He was working and being an assistant coach at the same time, but then he had a chance to leave the state. He went down to Fayetteville, North Carolina, and began working. And then he probably got, like everyone else who just can't, scratch that itch, or got into coaching, and he got into college coaching and had a chance back at home at Christopher Newport University in 2013 to 2017. So he had 4 years there, which is an outstanding Division III program. They've gone to Final Fours. They won multiple games. I think I looked at it where he was there for those years where they won almost 100 games in 4 years. So that's a tremendous number, coming from an outstanding program. And then, presently he's at Lafayette College, where he's in the Patriot League, where he's in year 4 now. So I've seen him grow in his business. I remember when he first started in his business. We have a mutual guy that we really respect in this business. I just want to say welcome to the show, JD.
Thanks, Coach. Thanks for having me. I'm really grateful for the opportunity, and I'm a big fan of the show, and you do a great job.
Appreciate that, man. You know what? We're going to get right into it. We're going to get unmasked. You were one of the first questions I love to ask is, there's no handbook to being a college coach. Tell me about your first day, week, month after things are done with human resources, especially when no one gives you direction. Now, you kind of work with and I say cagey veteran. So, Coach Roland Ross may have given you some insight, but talk about that, because now Division III is totally different from Division I. So you can talk about your Division III experience and you can talk about your Division I experience, but talk about that, man, when no one really gives you direction. You think you know, but you really don't know.
No, that's a good question. When I first started at Christopher Newport, it was definitely interesting. I kind of got thrown right into the fire. It was summer camp time, and anybody that coaches college basketball knows that camp time can get pretty hectic. And I was in charge of the day camp with the kids and the team camp. So we had the day camp Monday through Thursday. We had 200 kids from 5 to, I want to say 16, 17. And then Thursday, Friday, Saturday, we had the team camp where we had all the local high schools come and play. And I was in charge of that. And I had never done it before. And like you said, there was kind of no direction. Coach Krikorian, who's the head coach there now, he kind of just threw me in the fire and just told me to figure it out. So my first day was, I'm not gonna act like I had it all figured out. I was stressed out, man, and the registration line was way too long. I wasn't getting them through fast enough, and kids was running all around. You know, I had to get the balls ready, and then you're in charge of the staff. I think we had 20 staff members, and they're our players, and you know they want to be on their phones, they want to do their own thing. So I'm not gonna lie to you. That first day, that first week, I was pretty stressed out, and then obviously doing that, and then still trying to make sure that team camp is getting ready to roll at the end of the week was rough, because you know how that is. Teams pulling out at the last minute, and you know it was crazy. So I would say at Christopher Newport, that first week was rough. It was rough.
And talk about Lafayette, because now there's a difference. Like, even though like it's Division III is nonstop recruiting, like people don't realize this. I don't think you have any downtime in Division III, but like even though you go to Division I, like let's talk about, you know, like that's been a goal. You wanted to get there and be an assistant. Coach Corian had worked, you know, I think for Fran and, you know, at Lafayette. So it was a huge connection there. But what happened, like you get to Lafayette now, no one's telling you again, like what to do, because now it's Division III, Division I.
Yeah, well, it was a little crazy as well. I actually got the job at Lafayette pretty late in June. I think it was like right before the live period. So Division I had to take the recruiting test, which everybody knows as a coach how stressful that is. And you know, it was Coach Fran. He kind of put a little pressure on me and said, "Yeah, you know, if you don't pass this ain't a good look." So I was a little stressed about that. But then obviously I passed the test, and they actually sent me on the road and kind of just told me like, "Look, man, I think we had 3 spots filled. I think my first event was in Spartanburg, South Carolina, I want to say. I think it was an Adidas event, and they sent me a list of kids, and I had to kind of evaluate, give my input, but then I had to find some kids, because, you know, at this level, you got to be ready for your A, B, C, just because kids, they get better or they fall off. So you got to be ready. And it was definitely a little different because, like you said, I had never recruited for Division I before. So obviously you're pretty nervous and you want to do a good job. But, you know, I kind of just, you know, like I always do, just kind of figured it out. And there was no handbook, and you get more comfortable. And again, basketball is basketball at the end of the day, but it was definitely a little chaotic, especially at the end of the live period. Beginning of the live period. So.
Oh yeah, getting thrown in the fire. That's what it's about. And that's I'm glad that's right into it. You jumped in recruiting right away. I mean, where at least the evaluate part. Like, I'm gonna talk. Recruiting is the lifeline of college athletics. Like, you have to, and with you being at Lafayette now, I mean, even the Christopher Newport, because it changed over the years, but it's the lifeline of college athletics. You got to get good people, good student, and good players. And coaches gonna tell you, man, I want good player. You know, they're gonna say good player first. So like, you know, because the thing about being and I use this is I was at Brown and I was at American, and I always said when I recruited kids, I wanted to get really good basketball players that happened to be really good students. So that's how I looked at it when I started recruiting academic kids. And so it's saying, you know, when you looking at that from you being at Lafayette, like you want to be good, you got to get good players that just happen to love basketball. Talk about your best and worst recruiting stories that you've had. I mean, even, you know, Division III, Division I, it don't matter. Like in your last 8 years, your last 8 years, like what is that? What is your best and worst recruiting story?
Ooh, I could probably go on this for a while, but I would say my best recruiting story would probably be at Christopher Newport. We had just went to the Final Four that year. And me and Roland Ross, we kind of decided for the next class, we were like, look, man, we trying to get back to the Final Four because this is a great experience. So we were trying to go after guys that we thought were obviously way too good for our level. And there was this kid, his name is Jason Agner. His mom is the former head coach at George Mason. And I saw him play at Kickinton High School for this, I think it was the Southern Jam Fest. And the first time I saw him, he did not play well. I'm not gonna lie, he did not play well. And everybody was telling me about him, and I was like, yeah, he's all right. You know, I'm like, we got to get better. But then you know how we do. We go back and we see him again, and he knows I'm there, and I sit courtside, and he just goes off for like 30. And every bucket he hits, he's looking right at me in my eye, just kind of just looking at me like, yeah, like I'm like that. And kids like that, you know, man, kids that are just tough and got a little bit of an edge to them, they got it. So we luckily, man, we recruited them really hard, and we ended up getting them pretty early in the process. If we would have waited, I don't think we would have got him. And I didn't actually get a chance to coach him because I left, but he's going on his 4th year now. He's a first-team all-league guy, 1,000-point scorer, all-time leader in threes already, and he's only a junior. So that was probably my best story, to get somebody like that who could keep up the impact of Christopher Newport, and they ended up going to the Final Four again with him. So that was probably my best one. My worst one was at Lafayette. Me and Fran like to tell this story. So there was a kid out of Brooklyn, New York, that we had saw, and it was actually my first time on the road, and I loved him. He was 6'5", could really score, and he was kind of under the radar, was going to do a prep year. So I took Fran to see him, and Fran loved him. He offered him a scholarship, and the kid was obviously really about academics. And so we're like, all right, you know, once the live period's over, the last week of July, you know, come to campus, let's get this thing rolling. He's excited. So I texted him before his last game. He's in Vegas, and I didn't go. I went somewhere else. So our other assistant, Jimmy Finnerty, was out there. And I was like, yo, can you do me a favor? You know, check the game out. It's the last game of the day. He's like, got you. And the kid goes crazy. The kid hits 40 on the last day, the last game in July, hits 40 in front of everybody. Like every coach was still, you know, there because their flights were later. And Jimmy calls me, and he was just like, hey, man, I just want to say I'm sorry. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He was like, we're definitely out on him. And I said, what do you mean? I just talked to the kid. He's coming next week. He said, nah, man, he just put on a show. And so I'm already kind of blown. It was my birthday. You know, I went from a high to a low, and I'm texting the kid, you know, he's not responding. And he ends up calling me a week later and just says, look, coach, you know, I love Lafayette. I think you're a great job, but right now my recruiting is way too crazy. And the kid ended up going to the Big Ten. So that was probably my worst one. I was pretty hurt about it because I thought I was about to steal one. But you know how it goes. You win some, you lose some. So
that's how it is, man. You just got to learn, like, you know what, because you never know, you could get them back in the end of the day. That's what happens. Like, you just got to continue to recruit them. I mean, you know, once you decide to go somewhere else, you know, you stay in contact, you wish him luck, because you never know what happens in this business. And he may just, you know, like, he could end up coming back. That's just how things are. You know, this is a crazy business. That's exactly what it is. What do you know, like, you're going into year 8 now. I mean, you started as going back to your alma mater, and you know, I mean, going up to Pennsylvania where you are. I mean, that's not the easiest places. Being a young guy like yourself. But what did you have to sacrifice achieving your current level of success?
I think in this business, you know, the one thing you're probably sacrificing is time spent with your family and your friends. I have a young daughter and a fiance. My daughter's 2.5. And I would say, you know, just being on the road and being out late and watching film, I think you miss your kids grow. That was probably the biggest thing that I've sacrificed. And I think another thing you don't realize is that you miss out on even your close friends, their, you know, things that they do. You know, I've had friends that have had weddings, and, you know, I haven't been to my college homecoming in 8 years, 9 years, whatever it is. And you just miss things, you know, and you can't tell people to work around your schedule at the end of the day, because our schedule is just constantly going. You're constantly going. So I think people don't realize sometimes how much we do miss to kind of achieve what we want, which is, you know, the rise in this profession.
So true, because it's funny, because the first thing they like to ask is like, when is your downtime? And you're like, downtime? we don't have downtime. Like you know, it's 365 days, but you're working 355, 360 of those. You're lucky that you get a vacation. And then when you do take your vacation in August or, you know, May, whichever time it is, it's like you're always still on the phone talking, trying to get kids to come to campus. So, you know, like you really don't have a lot of downtime. And or the other favorite one is, what do you teach? Teach? No. You don't understand. Like, this is a full-time job. It's a lot of work. So I laugh at that a lot of times, JD. It's interesting. Um, Scout reports. We all know that that's another big thing in this business. Like, you have to have your guys prepare, and that's what head coaches lean on their assistants a lot. Responsibilities. Usually, scout reports are broken up. Some guys are starting to go the way of everyone is involved in the scout. So it might be defensive guy, offensive guy, it could be, you know, special teams, as we say. But in scout, and you can always tell who scout report is on the sideline, who's the guy that's jumping up and down, the most invested. You always can tell that. But at the same time, you got to realize, like, we're watching 6, 7, 8 games of film. We're trying to get our team prepared to be successful. But then you can't give the kids too much, because if you give them too much, I mean, it's an overload. Like, they have a lot of responsibility to go on. They have classroom, you know, they got class to go to, you know, they got tests and all of those things. And then they got other things that go on in their life. So you got to be careful. It's like, you know, that's kind of like, when we say 2020 is hindsight, but it's kind of like you got to figure out how much can you give them, how much to make them successful. And then it's the talking to the coach. You're telling the coach, like, you know, hey, coach, you know, guy's struggling. He's 2 for his last 25, 2 for his last 30 from 3. You know, he's struggling from shooting. You get into the game, the player decides to make 2 of his first threes. Coach is turning to you saying, I thought you said he couldn't shoot. No, coach, I didn't say that. I said he's struggling. So you know how the players give you the sign, they looking at you as you told them couldn't shoot it that well. But what was your best and worst scout report you've had over the years?
I would say the best one I've had was at Lafayette was last season. I had the St. Joe's scout, which was, you know, they were in the A. Obviously they're in the A10, and the game was at St. Joe's in Philly, and Coach O'Hanlon's from Philly, so, you know, he had a bunch of people there, and they had just beat UConn before, and, you know, we did a really good job of just giving the guys a game plan, and our guys just locked in. And you know, I kind of told them, like, hey, we can beat these guys, and we actually ended up, you know, winning by like 30. I mean, it was one of my favorite games that I've been a part of as a college coach, and just to see the guys, you know, believe it, and, you know, they're going nuts because, you know, once your game plan works and you get that trust, and everybody buys in, and it's a great feeling. So that was probably my best one, was St. Joe's last year at Lafayette. My worst one was also at Lafayette, was probably my first year here. And I had the Villanova scout when they won the national championship that year, the back-to-back year. And nobody else wanted the scout. So I was, you know, I was from Christopher Newport, and, you know, I'm like, yeah, I got it. You know, I've scouted in the Final Four. I can do it. And so I'm watching the film. I'm going through it with the guys, and, you know, I'm making them believe, like, yo, we gonna win this game. Like, they're good, but they're not that good. And I'm all hyped. I'm all fired up. And I'll never forget, we get out there for warm-ups. You know, you see the other coaches, and I'm looking at Jay Wright. He probably has no clue who I am, but I'm looking at him like, oh yeah, we about to show y'all something. And he's just being as cool as he can be. And we were down, I want to say 15 points in a minute. And I'm just like in shock. And, you know, it wasn't the plays. Everybody knows with Villanova, they just know how to play. They play the right way. And that's just something that you could go over everything you want, but until you get out in front of you, and you got, you know, Eric Pascal shooting threes, and, you know, Brunson in the post, they bring in DiVincenzo off the bench. Like, it was we ended up losing the game by like 40 points. And it definitely opened my eyes to not just Division One, but like how great of a job that, Jay Wright does and how great of a program that Villanova is.
Yeah, I definitely remember that team real well because that was my scout. Same year. We actually played them pretty well. We were played in Long Island across the street. And I just remember, like you said, the thing about it with us was Eric Pascal came into that game. I can still remember that 1 for 20 from three. So he wasn't shooting it well, but Omari Spellman was tough to guard. Brunson was tough to guard. I can remember Mikal Bridges and Booth. And I can remember that scout in my head. And that was, wow, 2017, 18. It was the day. It was that December 22nd game you get right before Christmas. So I can remember that pretty well. I definitely can remember that one. So yeah, same thing with us. It was the same year. I can remember that. And DiVincenzo's coming off the bench. I definitely remember that DiVincenzo. But what has been your biggest challenge you've experienced since you've been a college coach?
I would say the biggest challenge for me was obviously coming from Division III, not being, I didn't start off like as a grad assistant. I didn't start off under somebody. I kind of had to, get it out the mud a little bit. And I started at Christopher Newport, as a part-time assistant, making $5,000 a year. So I think that was probably the toughest thing, just kind of learning how this business works and kind of how to navigate through this business. I think that was tough for me because as an assistant, you think, and you probably understand this as well, you think, winning games and you doing well, that's how you're going to move up. That's how you're going to get, better jobs. But, in this business, it's all about, and a lot of businesses, it's all about who you know at the end of the day. And I think for me, that was probably the toughest thing that I dealt with because I just didn't understand at the time, especially as a younger coach, like, this guy's getting this job and you shouldn't, now I'm older, I don't even focus on that stuff. But when I was younger, I was looking at all these guys like, how's he going here? And this guy's doing this. And, we just went to the Final Four and boom, boom, boom. And I just had to learn, like, man, you just got to kind of have blinders on and just focus on the job in front of you and do a really good job and it'll work out for you.
That's awesome stuff. And you're so right. Like, like you said, with the blindness, man, you just got to be looking in front of you. Now, like you said, I've seen you come in. I saw you work, grind. You come into the building. I'm locked in. I'm focused. I need to watch these players. So I know how hard you work and how much time you put in. And do you ever find that there are things about you that people might misunderstand? Like, what are they?
I would probably say that when I'm on the road, I'm pretty locked in. Like I'm pretty focused on what I'm doing. I'm not one of those guys that just talks and doesn't watch the game. Like I'm pretty attentive to what I'm doing just because, one, that's our job. And two, like, you want to make sure you get it right. I think recruiting is more about getting it right than, proving everybody wrong. For me, I want to make sure that if I tell coach, like this guy can really do this, I'm right about it. So when he comes to see him, that it matches up. So on the road, I can kind of be, I don't want to say standoffish. I'm just locked in, what I'm doing. And now after the games are over, if I catch you, in the hallway or something, I'll chat up. But usually when I'm working, I'm kind of, I guess you could say I'm in the zone a little bit, just trying to make sure I'm doing what I got to do. Because especially at this level, you got to watch so many kids. So you're just trying to make sure you take advantage of every hour that you get there because as you know, once it's over, it's over. So you want to make sure you get it right.
You are 100% correct, man. I love that. I'm glad you're dropping some knowledge so young people that keep saying they want to get in this crazy business. Everybody said they want to get in until they get in and they realize how it is. But you know what? Like it's something you love. I mean, people love it. So it's just once you're in, you see everything that go on and you got to have an acquired taste. Like everyone can't do this job, but if you love it, there's a lot of rewards to it. We're all educators. That's what we are first. And I mean, You know, we always tell the players like the basketball court is like a classroom, but we're always educating them, not just on the court, but off the court. What do you try to teach or educate your players besides basketball?
I think the biggest thing for me is teaching these guys how to deal with adversity. I think a lot of guys in life, you're gonna just deal with so much stuff that's gonna happen to you, and it's really about how you respond to it. You know, everything's not always gonna go your way. So for me, I really try to harp on that to my guys that, look, man, maybe you're missing some shots or whatever, but maybe you didn't do well on this test, but how are you going to do on the next test? You know, that's what's important, because life to me is all about the bounce back. And the people that figure that out early is that, you know what, how can I learn from this mistake, are the people I think are more successful. So I think for me, it's really about just teaching these guys how to deal with adversity and how to kind of learn from things and to grow. Because I think the more you grow, the more of an advantage you have over other people that kind of think they got it all figured out. So I think for me, that's something I really focus on.
Awesome, man. Awesome. What are your best and worst memories in coaching? I mean, you've been in 8 years now. So, I mean, I know you talk about your Final Four and things like that. So, but what are your best and worst memories in coaching?
I would say the best memory would probably be the Final Four, just because we were set a school record. We were 30-2. We got to fly back private from the Elite Eight. I mean, you get to see it. That's something that most people will never, ever get a chance to get to. So to go to a Final Four and to be one of the top teams in the country, I think for me was something I'll never forget. And it's something I'll take with me for the rest of my life. I would say my worst memory would probably be my first season at Lafayette was pretty tough, just because I was at a high at Christopher Newport. You know, we were number 2 in the country, whatever. And then I came to Lafayette, and I think my first year we were 10-25 maybe, or 10-23, whatever. And that was the first time I had lost as a coach. And I take losing. I'm a pretty competitive person, and I struggle with it, man. I wasn't sleeping, and, my fiance was pregnant. So like, I was just dealing with a lot of anxiety, and it was pretty tough, but it taught me so much about myself that you can't stop working and you got to figure it out. And I think that's why we've had the success that we had at Lafayette that we're having right now, is that we had to go through those tough times to kind of get to where we are now. And I think if that wouldn't have happened to me, I don't think I would have learned the lessons that I've learned. But that first year was pretty tough. Good
stuff, man. It's all about learning lessons. And this is kind of an entertaining question. And I kind of laugh and chuckle at some of the stories I've heard. Like, what is the strangest or wildest, maybe craziest thing a player has done outside of basketball, outside the basketball court?
Ooh, that's definitely an interesting question. I would say the strangest thing I saw wasn't on the court, it was on the track. At Christopher Newport, we did conditioning, and we tell our guys that they have to run a certain time when they come back. I think the guards were like 5:30, wings 5:45. I think the bigs were 6 minutes. So we kind of tell you, it's coming. And it's on the first day of school, and it's early in the morning. So I had a freshman at the time who, I'm always reminding him, like, yo, make sure you're running, make sure you're doing your thing. And he's like, Coach, I got it, boom, boom, boom. He was a state champion, yada, yada, yada. So we get on the track, and he runs the first lap as fast as I've ever seen anybody run in my life. Like, he just goes. And I'm looking at Coach Krikorian, I'm like, okay, like he's definitely in shape. The next thing I know, the second lap, he runs maybe not even halfway and stops and just sits down. And I'm like, I'm thinking he pulled a cramp, I'm thinking something happened. And so we all, I run over there, me and Coach, and like, what's going on? And he was like, I can't run no more. I'm exhausted. Like, he's like, I'm just done. Like, I was like, what do you mean? You ran a lap. Like, what do you mean? You still got 3 more to go. And he was just like, no, that's it. And I was just so thrown off because I've never seen nobody not finish the mile before. And it really, it just caught me, it caught the rest of the staff off guard. Like, I've never seen nobody not finish the mile run, especially after running the first lap so well. So that was probably the strangest thing I've seen in coaching.
While it is strange, it stops. I'm done.
They ain't have it. They ain't have it.
Wow. What's and you kind of talked about it, and I won't even go back to that one. I'm gonna just say, I'm gonna give you another entertainment one because you do have a young. The pandemic is going on, and it's 2.5 years old. But I'm gonna throw this at you. What movie or TV show title best describes your work week or your week?
Ooh, that's another good one. I would probably say this is an old school show. I would probably say Family Matters describes my work week. And the reason why I would probably say that is I didn't understand until I had a family that the work doesn't stop when you get home. And I think, like when I was younger, I would go to work, do my thing, and then I would just come home and lay down and go to sleep. But now you go home, you do your job, and you come home and like, my daughter is ready to go. Like, she's ready to play. It just doesn't stop. You're dealing with a whole bunch of different problems. This doesn't work at the house, and you're exhausted. So I would probably say Family Matters, just because I remember in that show how much Carl would deal with when he got home. And I'm like, man, my man just worked a 12-hour shift. Now he got to deal with this. And like, now that I'm older, I think I'm starting to realize like, wow, the work definitely doesn't stop once you get home. So that's a good question.
That's a great choice too, man. What's your favorite word or phrase that you like to use?
I have 2. One of my phrases that I like to use that my mom always tells me is that God never gives you more than you can handle. I just live by that, just regardless of what's going on. When I feel like maybe I'm overwhelmed or I got a lot on my plate, my mom she always reminds me that, she texts me that, just like, he wouldn't put it in front of you if he doesn't think you can get it done. So that's probably the big one. And then the other one I would probably say is, I stole it from Isaiah Thomas when he was playing with the Celtics. I saw one of his YouTube documentaries, and it's Stay Paranoid. And it's just, for me, it just kind of always reminds me, don't settle, don't ever be happy with what I'm accomplishment. I'm just kind of always reminded, like, somebody wants to take your spot. There's always somebody trying to outwork you. So I probably live by that as well, as staying paranoid at all times.
No, 2 good ones, man. Very interesting. I like moms giving you, texting that to you sometime as well. What's the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
I would probably say Roland Ross. As a lot of people know, he's an assistant at Christopher Newport. He's a legend in the Hampton Roads area. I would probably say the best advice he gave me was, don't take winning for granted. He said a lot of people want to win in this business, especially on the court. Don't take it for granted because it's very hard. And he said sometimes you get caught up in thinking it's easy and it's not. And I think that was probably the best advice he's given me off the court. And then I say off the court, he tells me all the time is spend as much time as I can with my family. Do not spend time with my daughter or my fiance or my friends, because that time goes by fast. And before you know it, your kids are going to be older. So I think that's also some great advice that he's given me, is just spending that time with my family. And for me, I'll take stuff home. I used to stay in the office all day, and I'm sure you were the same way. We want to stay in there all day, but now I'll take my laptop home and I'll make sure I'm home for dinner, and, giving my daughter a bath, read her a book, and then I'll stay up late that night, do the rest of my work. But I definitely want to make sure that I'm spending as much time with my family as I can.
That's great advice, man, from Coach Ross. I'm probably call him. Like, that's the only man I know we could go 2-3 months without talking to us, and I see his phone call. I'm always answering his phone call. Like, it's just the things that he drop on you. And I mean, he was assistant coach when I was transferring from Longwood, and he tried to get me to come to Christopher Newport. I said, "There's no way I'm coming over to Christopher Newport." So I go back to him to 1990 probably. So 30 years. So he's always been there, which I can lean on him. And he's going to be so excited to know that you actually did this show. I know he is. Trust me.
Yeah, he's a legend. He's a legend, man.
He's definitely a legend. He's definitely a legend.
I think he's probably the best recruiter in the country, man. He recruited an NBA player to a Division III school, man. Not many people can do that. So
you're 100% right. Lamont Strauss. I would have never thought he would have been there, but definitely he recruited one. You're not a self-promoting person. So I'll ask this question: like, if you had to choose 3 adjectives to describe yourself, which would you choose?
I would probably say humble. I would probably say adaptable. I think I adapt to I can adapt to situations just growing up, going to school with different types of people, being in different situations, so I can adapt. And then I would probably say loyal. I think I'm pretty loyal to people especially people that I trust and people that I know have my best interest. I will do anything for anybody that I know cares and loves for me, which is why I have such a tight circle and the people that I talk to on a daily basis. So I would probably say those 3.
Awesome. Those are 3 great ones right there. Yeah. I'm going to include selfless too. So for me telling you that. So very selfless person. I like that. What person and or event has had the most influence on your life?
I would probably say having my daughter probably has had the most impact on me, because living for somebody else is totally different. When you're just thinking about yourself all the time, and then having to actually take care of somebody who depends on you every day to be at your best. I would say my daughter's probably had the biggest impact on me. And she was actually born premature. So I had to deal with that. So that event was pretty stressful, and going to see her, in the hospital, and going from work, going back and forth for doing that for a couple of weeks. That was probably had the biggest impact on me. And it really changed me, and it kind of helped me just grow up, to be honest. Like I see life totally different now. And I know that I got somebody at home every day that depends on me. So I think that event probably had the biggest impact on my life.
That's great stuff right there, man. And I want to ask this: like, you had a chance to, you've been around some good people, coaching wise, and just good people in general. But if you had a chance to sit down with, let's say 4 individuals, and you had a chance to pick their brain, you're having lunch or dinner with them for 3 or 4 hours, like, who would those 4 people be in athletics? I'm going to say athletics, because I'm not just going to nerd to basketball. Sometimes some people like they use Nick Saban as one of them. But who 4 people you would want to sit down with, talk to, and pick their brain, and just figure out what makes them tick?
I would say, to keep it in college basketball, I would probably say Leonard Hamilton at Florida State. I just think he's one of the best coaches in college basketball that doesn't get talked about a lot. And I think he does a great job. I would say Kelvin Sampson at Houston. I just love how hard his teams play, man. Like, I just think whatever he's doing to them or he's teaching them, I think is phenomenal. I would probably say Tony Bennett at Virginia. I just love his character. I just think he has his thing figured out. I think it's not about him. I think it's about the program and the kids and how he keeps his temperament, a certain way. And then the last person would probably be Jay Wright. I'd probably say Jay Wright. I think the culture that Villanova has built these years, he's won 2 national championships and he does it his way. He doesn't really get caught up in recruiting. I got to recruit this guy or whatever. He recruits guys that he wants to coach and that will buy in. And, I think I would love to sit down with him and just kind of see, what he had to go through or what lessons did he learn and kind of figure that out. So I'd probably say those 4.
4 great ones, man. Those, and you got it for all different aspects too. You talked about culture, you talked about character, like, what I'm saying? Like, so you reached different aspects. That's great 4 guys, a great combination. And I'm gonna end with this question. I think is important when people think about it, like knowing what you know now, like what would you tell your younger self? Because you are still young. But what would you tell your younger self to prepare for as an assistant coach?
I would probably say, a couple things. I would say one, is run your own race. Don't get caught up in what everybody else is doing or, don't, worry about what the next man is doing. Just focus on you and doing the best job that you can do at your situation. I think that's probably something I would definitely tell myself, because I think I worried about that a little too much as a younger coach of, what's my next move? What am I going to do? And I think Fran O'Hanlon has probably taught me that the best is just bloom where you're planted, and wherever you're at, just make it better than you left it. So that's probably something that I would probably tell my younger self. And the other thing I would probably tell my younger self is to probably, I wish I would have networked a little more as a younger coach. I think when I was younger as a coach, I was just so worried about me. And I just thought, again, we talked about it. I just thought, winning games as an assistant would help me move in the business. I think I would have told myself to kind of, talk to other guys and get to meet different people. I've gotten so much better at that now. Obviously I'm older, but as a younger coach, I think that would have benefited me a lot earlier in my career, is just networking and just talking to different people in this profession.
Those are two good ones, man. I'm glad you said that. So you'll know what to say to the younger guy when it's time for when he decides to get in this business. But look, JD, man, I want to thank you again for being a guest on the show and being unmasked. Is there anything that you want to say to the viewers before we go?
No, I was just going to say I really appreciate the opportunity, Lamar. I mean, you do a great job, great voice for coaches all out there around the country. And again, I really appreciate it. And if you guys got a chance this season, man, check the Lafayette Leopards out, man. We're doing some pretty special things up here. So,
well, I appreciate you, man. And I'll be watching. I'll follow you guys. And good luck, man, the rest of the season. I want to thank you, viewers, for watching another great show. Stay tuned for the next guest as we get them unmasked. See you next time, and stay safe.